It was a golden Saturday afternoon in Willow Creek, the kind of day where the sun draped everything in a warm glow, and the air carried the soft hum of suburban life. I'd promised my 6-year-old daughter Sophie a special dance practice in our driveway. Her school's annual daddy-daughter dance was just a week away, and Sophie had been fretting over her steps all week, her little brow furrowing as she practiced in front of the mirror. "What if I trip, Daddy?" she'd asked, her hazel eyes wide with worry. To ease her nerves, I suggested we practice outside, where the open space of our driveway would give us room to twirl without knocking over the living room lamp again. I hooked up my Bluetooth speaker, scrolled to Sophie's favorite Disney playlist, and watched as my little princess bounded out the front door in her glittery pink dress, a plastic crown perched adorably askew on her chestnut curls. "Ready to dance, my lady?" I asked, offering a playful bow. Sophie giggled, attempting a wobbly curtsy that nearly sent her crown tumbling. We started simple box steps, her tiny sneakers perched on my boots as I guided her across the concrete. Her laughter rang out, bright and carefree, bouncing off the quiet street. I spun her gently, her dress flaring like a tiny galaxy, and for a moment, it was just us, lost in our own world. That is, until I caught sight of Margaret Hensley storming down the sidewalk, her clipboard clutched like a weapon and her lips pursed into a scowl that could sour lemonade. Margaret was the iron-fisted president of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association, a woman who treated the HOA rulebook like holy scripture. No one quite remembered voting on half the rules she enforced, but that didn't stop her from patrolling the neighborhood like a self-appointed sheriff. If your grass grew a quarter-inch too long or your mailbox tilted a degree off-center, Margaret was there, pen poised, ready to slap you with a citation. "Mr. Carter!" she barked, her voice sharp enough to slice through the music. I paused, resting a hand on Sophie's shoulder to steady her. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" I forced a smile, keeping my tone even. "Just practicing for Sophie's school dance, Margaret. It's next weekend, and we're brushing up." Margaret's eyes narrowed to slits as she flipped through her clipboard with the flair of a prosecutor presenting damning evidence. Section 7, Paragraph 3, Subsection B of the Willow Creek HOA regulations explicitly states that driveways are for parking vehicles only. No recreational activities are permitted in front-facing property areas. Her words dripped with smug authority, as if she just caught me smuggling contraband. I took a deep breath, mindful of Sophie's curious gaze. "Margaret, it's just a dance. We're not bothering anyone." But Margaret wasn't how-vying it. "Rules are rules, Mr. Carter," she snapped, her tone implying I'd personally offended her sense of order. "Cease this immediately and take it inside where it belongs." Sophie's grip on my hand tightened, her voice small. "Do we have to stop, Daddy?" The question hit me like a punch, her disappointment a weight I couldn't ignore. Before I could respond, our neighbor Dave poked his head out from across the street. "Hey, Mike, don't mind us," he called, while vying cheerfully. "Sophie's moves are looking great, way better than my Katie's when she was learning." A few other neighbors, trimming hedges or walking dogs, chimed in with similar support. Mrs. Nguyen from next door even clapped, shouting, "Keep going, Sophie!" The street, it seemed, was on our side, their encouragement a quiet rebellion against Margaret's tyranny. But Margaret's face flushed a dangerous shade of scarlet, her clipboard trembling in her grip. "This is a violation!" she screeched, her voice climbing to a pitch that could shatter glass. "If you don't stop, I'll issue a citation and have it noted on your property record." I knelt to Sophie's level, brushing a curl from her face. "Sweetie, why don't you grab a glass of water inside? It's warm out here." She hesitated, then trudged toward the house, her crown bobbing sadly. Once she was out of earshot, I faced Margaret, my patience fraying. "Look, I get that you're doing your job, but I've read the HOA guidelines cover to cover. There's nothing banning dancing in driveways. As a corporate attorney, I spent my days dissecting contracts. I'd studied Willow Creek's rulebook before we bought this house 3 years ago." Margaret's nostrils flared, her indignation palpable. "It falls under recreational activities, which are clearly prohibited. Actually, I countered, keeping my voice steady. The guidelines define recreational activity ties as sports or games involving equipment that could damage property or make excessive noise. A father-daughter dance doesn't qualify. That's when Margaret made her fatal misstep. With a dramatic flourish, she yanked out her phone. Fine. If you won't respect this community's standards, I'm calling the police. They'll make you understand. I blinked, incredulous. You're calling 911 over a dance with my 6-year-old? Margaret jutted her chin defiantly. It's a civil dispute, and the police handle those too. What followed was a performance worthy of an Oscar. As she dialed, Margaret spun a wild tale to the dispatcher, claiming a massive unauthorized gathering in my driveway with blaring music, disrupting the entire neighborhood. She even threw in that I'd verbally intimidated her when she tried to intervene. I glanced around. Neighbors had paused their yard work, some pulling out phones to record the spectacle. Sophie reappeared at the door, watching wide-eyed as Margaret's theatrics unfolded. 10 minutes later, 2 police cruisers rolled up. Officer Daniels, a familiar face from neighborhood barbecues, approached with a bemused expression, his partner, Officer Lee, scanning the scene. We got a call about a disturbance, Daniels said, though his tone suggested he saw nothing remotely disturbing. Margaret pounced, her voice shrill. Yes, officers. This man is violating HOA rules with unauthorized activity ties, blasting loud music, and he threatened me when I enforced the regulations. Daniels glanced at Sophie, twirling nervously in her pink dress, then back at Margaret. Ma'am, you called 911 over an HOA issue? It's more than that, Margaret insisted, her voice hitting a fever pitch. He's disturbing the peace. Look how everyone's routines are disrupted. At that moment, Mrs. Nguyen stepped forward, her tone polite but firm. Officers, we've all been enjoying Mike and Sophie's dance practice. The only person disturbed is Margaret, who seems to have a problem with everything in this neighborhood. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the growing crowd, and Dave mentioned he'd recorded the whole exchange, including Margaret's embellished 911 call. Officer Lee pulled Margaret aside while Daniels chatted with me, confirming the obvious, just a dad and his daughter practicing for a school dance, music at a reasonable volume. When Daniels rejoined his partner, something unexpected happened. After a brief exchange, Lee produced a pair of handcuffs. Ms. Hensley, you're under arrest for misuse of emergency services and filing a false police report. Margaret's face strained of color, her clipboard slipping from her hands. What? This is outrageous. I'm the HOA president. Daniel sighed, his patience saintly. Ma'am, HOA disputes are civil, not criminal. You falsely reported a disturbance and claimed you were threatened, which witness accounts and our body cams contradict. Misusing 911 is serious. As they read her rights, Margaret's protests grew frantic. Do you know who I am? She shrieked, her voice echoing as they guided her to the cruiser. I lunch with Judge Harlan. You'll be fired by Monday. Lee's expression remained impassive, though I caught the faintest smirk. Threatening officers won't help, ma'am. The fallout was swift and brutal. At her court hearing the following Tuesday, Margaret was slapped with a DULA 1,500 fine and 40 hours of community service. But the real blow came that evening, as she stood shell-shocked before the judge. Her phone buzzed with a message from the HOA board. She'd been ousted as president in an emergency meeting, replaced by Mr. Sullivan, a mild-mannered retired principal. Margaret's jaw dropped, her reign of terror crumbling in real time. As Sophie and I resumed our dance practice that weekend, the neighborhood felt lighter, freer. And when Sophie nailed her twirl at the school dance, her smile outshone even the sparkles on her dress.